to this bill.
My Lords, I want to thank the Noble Lord Sicker for tabling this amendment. I think it's such an important issue to raise, and I'm glad that he's brought it back. We, of course, all want a multiple of funders for research, so this is not an attempt at arguing against the funding of research. But we do need to be wary of a tendency towards advocacy research from any direction. We sometimes assume that this mainly concerns big, bad corporates, but we need to look, and we do indeed need to look carefully at business interests who, of course, have every interest in having their interests represented by the apparently impartial academic sector. However, this can also be true about the big charity sector too. It's often assumed that their backing of research will be always on the right side, but we should remember that they're also lobbying organisations. So I'm so glad that the Noble Lord Sicker mentions all sectors, including philanthropic, and his main point is for transparency, and then we can make the decisions based on that. And he says, as he rightly says, transparency that goes way beyond just listing them, because in that instance, actually, you can end up with a situation where you think, this big corporate is sponsored, therefore it must be corrupt research, but you can also think this big charity is sponsored, so it must be good research, whereas actually you want to know exactly what influence any funder has on the research. I think that the amendment is particularly important since the phrase "the research shows" is often used as a precursor to saying, so we don't need any debate, because the research is treated as a holy grail of truth. And we do need to make sure that research, therefore, is reliable. In addition, and finally, I think that there's another threat to research being, as it were, impartial, and that's the ideological capture of research organisations, sometimes associated with the government. So I mentioned in the committee stage, and as a reminder, that the UKRI, that is a non-political organisation to distribute government largesse and is the largest funder of research that we associate with government research, boasts in its new equality, diversity and inclusion strategy that it's been inspired by political advocacy groups and grassroots movements, advocates that UKRI-supported research is, quote, delivered in inclusive ways and uses levers to make change and so on. And I think that that does call into question impartiality in deciding on the distribution of public research money. Regardless, and whatever the Noble Lord Sicker decides to do with this amendment, I hope that the government and the Minister will take into account that this is not an area that can be neglected if this bill is to be successful in protecting academic freedom.
With the previous speaker that ideological capture takes place